All right, we're in.
Okay. Should I stay or should I go is the topic today, friends. And no, we are not talking about relationships. We're talking about your real estate brokerage. If you've ever wondered, is this the right fit for me? You're not alone. Today, we're going to break down when it's time to stay, when it's time to move on, and how to choose growth without guilt. Holly, my friend, first and foremost, happy birthday.
Hi, thank you so much.
How are you doing today?
I'm lovely. Thank you. I can't wait to see you. I'll see you in
Like
2
48 hours.
days.
I know. So exciting. So exciting.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is a topic that we thought would be important to talk about. One, because um, this time of year, a lot of people are reevaluating their businesses. They're evaluating their brokerage. They're evaluating how they did in the year. They're thinking about their goals for the previous year. And a lot of times when agents want to leave brokerages, this is a time that they're debating it. So we really thought that this would be a good talking point. And I have a bit of insight as well as I was just recruited pretty hard
Mm,
from a real estate brokerage.
mhm,
And I decided to stay with my
mhm.
epic family. And so we're going to dive into a little bit about that. So, what do you think, Holly? When is a good time to stay? And when is a good time to go?
All right, so some of the common I'm going to talk about like some of the reasons why people go and some of the bad reasons. So a couple of the common bad reasons I would say that people leave their brokerage are for the split.
Right.
So they just really are fixated on having a better split. And then the other reason is that I hear a lot is they want leads. They want leads. And then the third reason is just not being aligned with the leadership. So let's talk about the split for a second. So you have lots of different splits out there, 70-30, heck 50-50 if you're on a team and it's a team lead. You've got 80-20, 85-15, which is epics. You have 100%. So, and then you have desk fees and it's so hard to, wrap your head around like what and you have transaction fees and then there's caps on transaction fees and then there's your cap and what does that mean and then how do you do the math? It's so hard, isn't it? I mean, I'm thinking, Alana, like when it comes to that, let's say you narrow it down to 3 brokerages. That might be ideal if you could narrow it down to 3 brokerages, and maybe they have wildly varying compensations um, models. Maybe you could just plug it in ChatGPT. I don't know. And then just like,
Right.
put in each thing. Hey, here's the cap here. It's sliding. It changes every year. And then here's a scenario. If I stay there 5 years, and I don't know, because it's hard. That's a really hard thing. It's not really, you're not even comparing apples to apples. And you're getting so many, for 100% brokerage, Alana, I would imagine everything is a la carte. So you've got to think about, what are you paying for? What about your peace of mind? I mean, I joined a team not as a new agent. I chose to join a team to lose out on some of my compensation per transaction. However, I have a much lower cap on the team. I have lower desk fees. I don't have to pay for a lot of more robust elements that I get included in a really high performing team. And I also like am way less stressed out. Like I just feel better. So I mean, there were not that there has to be a dollar amount for that too.
Well,
I don't know. What do you think?
and that comes down to, right, like the value. What value is the brokerage that you're thinking about going to provide you? And what cost do you want to associate with that? And that is a question that only each individual that's going through this can answer for themselves. I mean, you're at, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're at a 50-50 split with your team, right?
If it's a team generated lead.
And then on top of that, you still do have splits with your brokerage
Um, yeah.
until you cap. So in that regard, but again, that doesn't matter because the value that you see for being on your team? So it really comes down to huge question. What is the value? And do you see that value in that company?
Mhm.
And you kind of break it down from that. And sometimes, you've got to be careful because these recruiters, that's what they do. And they are very, very good at breaking you down, getting you to get to not your first pain point, not your second pain point, but your third and your fourth pain point. And when they get you there, then they loop in how their brokerage can be a solution to your problem, right? You
Mhm.
start to feel warm, you start to feel fuzzy inside. However, you really need to dive deep to see if what that recruiter is saying to you is actually going to help solve your problems. And so I always encourage everybody to take, excuse me, 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours, a week, however much time you really need to process making a decision, take that time to really process it and do not sign on the dotted line with with another real estate company without having time to process it. Because again, the recruiters are very, very, very good at what they do. Like that is their job. That's what they get paid to do. But when
Mhm.
you step back and you sit and you write things down, or, you write down your bullet points and then maybe you put it into ChatGPT, or you talk to your spouse about it, or however you like to process things, then you can really get a bird's eye view of what a real estate company is going to offer you,
Yeah.
from a value standpoint.
Yeah. Sorry, my printer is just like spontaneously going off. Sorry, that was really random. I don't know why it just printed something randomly. Creepy. Um, yeah. Okay, so let's move on from the split because that is such a huge. The splits is such a huge topic. Like, we could spend a whole episode on splits. The next is leadership. So not having faith in the leaders anymore. How do they? You had talked about, Alana, when we were prepping for this episode of like, which I thought was good, was how do people show up for you? So, and like how, if you don't go with them or you start to get cold, like a little bit cold feet, how they react to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that that is a big part in making a decision. And sometimes if you decide to go with that company, you don't really know until like you get a little situated. Like, is what they said and the promises that they made really going to be? Or, if someone has courted you pretty hard and then you decide not to make the move, I mean, an instant shift in demeanor, the way that they speak to you, how their warmth immediately changes,
Hmm.
gives you an instant gratification that like, okay, this person may not have been doing it for my benefit, but their benefit. So those are things that, you kind of have to look at. And again, these people that are recruiting, that's their job, is to recruit.
Yeah, it's so hard to know until you're really there, isn't it? What it's gonna be like. I,
Mhm.
I guess, I mean, if you can get on any calls beforehand, like I know with Epic, we have these Wednesday calls. Um, they might be Georgia. I just saw a message from our broker that said like you can invite people to these. So there's
Oh,
certain
those
call, yeah.
are open calls to anybody and we actually encourage people to go on these calls before making a decision so that you can kind of see how leadership shows up, what the company is doing, where we're standing. And there's also another call that I believe is open to all, is the Meet the Founders call,
Oh yeah.
where
Okay.
people have an opportunity to actually go and meet the founders of the company. So but yeah, I'd encourage to like try to get on any sort of mastermind calls, or not just talk with the recruiter, but talk with the broker, the managing broker. How quickly does the managing broker text you back when you cold text message them, someone that they don't know? How quickly do they get back to you? What does that conversation look like? Are you able to talk to other leaders in the company? So really Don't just make a decision off of one conversation. Really, really do your research. Because here's the thing, a brokerage will not fix your skills, your consistency, or your systems. They will be able to add on to that, but they're not going to be able to fix it. So some of
Mhm.
these things you've got to look or internally and say like, okay, what did I do this year? What could I have done better this year? And were those me things or were they brokerage things? Because I will say
Yeah.
I've switched to a lot of brokerages, so I'm pretty knowledgeable on this. Um, you lose 3 to 5 months of traction every time you switch a real estate brokerage.
Really?
You're starting over. So how do you want that to look? And if you have listings or you have buyers under contract, how are you going to keep that process seamless and unnoticeable for your clients? How is that brokerage going to help you do that?
Yeah. The onboarding is huge, and I don't think Epic has it down perfect. It seems like I don't know if there is a brokerage that has onboarding perfect. I don't know. Cuz that seems to be like a common complaint everywhere.
Yeah,
Switching is just hard. And
it is.
it almost seems like you really do need, like at Epic, it kind of probably depends a lot on your area leader, of having like a really good area leader that's kind of got a good onboarding process down. Um,
And,
yeah.
and beyond the area leader role, we have implemented where we have onboarding calls a couple days a week.
Yeah.
So, I would always encourage the agents beyond me when I just, stepped down, but when I was an area leader, to go onto those onboarding calls.
Yeah. It seems like they've put a lot in place since I joined over a year ago
Yeah.
that, yeah.
And making sure that when, you and your broker, because your broker is the person that's got to move all the listings over. So, and normally the pendings that are under contract would stay with that brokerage, and whatever, your ICA split with that brokerage would be always check that, because that would stay the same. So it might be more advantageous for you to actually close out that deal and not move yet, because if you do, then the brokerage might take a higher split. So anyways, just a pro tip, look into that when you are making a split, but also getting with both brokers, which is a hard conversation to have, right? Because you're taking listings from one brokerage, moving them to another, but everybody's got to be on board with that transition. To, again, making a transition is a personal business decision, which in a lot of ways, if you think the brokerage you're moving to has more marketing opportunities and better systems for your business and your clients, that's great. But they don't really care about that when they're trying to sell their biggest asset, right?
Yeah.
They want to make sure that that is being managed properly. So really, I just try to make that as seamless as possible in the background, um,
I feel
almost
like
unbeknownst to them.
I think you need to have a good week or two of not a super busy calendar to do the transition.
Yeah.
I don't think it's good to do a transition right before you go on a trip like I did, and it was awful.
And that's it. And that's another reason agents are consider making splits during this time of the year. Because normally this time of the year is traditionally a little bit slower.
If they're staying at home, gosh, I feel so busy right now. I feel so busy, and I'm leaving on that trip on Friday, and I feel like
Because you're going on vacation.
I know it's
That's a
hilarious.
realtor's rite
Like,
of passage.
ridiculous. It's so silly. It's so true. I am like swarming. I mean, I told you, Alana, this, whatever. We'll go back to the topic, but my phone is literally ringing off the hook with leads. Just throwing that out there. I
That's
can't
a blessing.
can't get to all of them. It is just almost overwhelming. I don't know what's happening right now. But what do you think the best time to move is? I'm kind of thinking like beginning of January. Sounds
Yeah.
like a good one, right? Because that
I
January is usually kind of quiet.
It is. And so again, that's something that you've got to think into is, when is the best time to move? I mean, we can, say that January, but really best time to move is very personal.
Yeah.
When I always recommend when you're a little bit slower, because then you don't have as much transition with clients, which I think
Yeah.
is important. But again, what if there are agents that always have, 10 listings? It's never a good
Yeah.
time to make a move, right? And so you can't get stuck in limbo with a brokerage you no longer feel aligned with just because you have business. So the best time is when it is the right time for you. Just make sure that you have your steps in order to make everything as seamless as possible
Yeah.
for your clients, because ultimately, no matter what brokerage you're with, how you handle a transition and how you handle leaving a brokerage, you might leave a brokerage, but your reputation is going to go with you no matter where you are.
Yeah. And worth noting, Epic honors the cap. So we call it cap deferment. Is that right? Am I using the
Yes.
right
Mhm.
terminology? Okay. So like because I know a lot of people want to wait until they've capped,
That's such a good point.
or they want to
Yeah, a
wait
lot of
until
people think,
when their
"Oh, I
cap
can't
starts
move
over.
because I capped," which if you're not familiar with a cap is when you're at a real estate brokerage that has a cap amount that you pay into the company dollar. For instance, Epic is
15.
$15,000 your first year, and then declines by $1,000 year after year with that. So, but what we do is we honor a cap deferment. So right now I'm capped. My cap would start over again in February. If I was to make a move, they would honor that cap until February, when my cap would start over.
Right. So you don't lose yeah.
So you don't lose your 100%
Mm-hmm.
commission split. So they don't, um, they don't want to discourage you from making a move based
Yeah.
on, they don't want to handcuff you to that 100% cap. They want to
Which
give
is
you that
really cool.
deferment flexibility.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Quickly, let's touch on the leads, because we do hear that a lot. Is especially for newer agents that like leads are scarce, and they really want leads. They want to join a team to get leads, or they want to be at a brokerage that gives them leads. And what are your thoughts on that, Lonnie?
Yeah, so I would say that don't make leads the number one reason that you join any brokerage. I think they can be implemented as a bonus, but the leads from any brokerage are only is going to be as good as your consistency and your follow up. So if you're at a brokerage now that gives you leads and you think, "Oh, they're bad leads, they're shitty leads. Oh, it's the company." Are you following up with those leads? How often are you following up with those leads? What is your nurture plan? Because really, the fortune is in the follow up.
Yeah.
So I say leads are a bonus. I say, what are the splits of the leads when you go to a different company? That's always a good question to ask. Like, okay,
Mhm.
you're giving me company leads. Is that at a 50-50 split? Or do I just get to keep my normal split? So I think that that's a good question to ask. But yeah, leads are only as good as you work them. I think that goes for a team. I think that goes for a real estate brokerage. So have receiving leads as a bonus, but not a core reason as to why you would switch to a real estate brokerage. I mean, even just for what you said you had so many leads coming in from your team that you can't even keep up with them. Well, if you can't keep up with them, not as this is a knock, I'm just using this as an example. If you can't keep up with them, then they're not really good leads, right? Because you're not working them. So
Right.
again, not to repeat myself, but the leads are only as good as the person working the leads.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And I don't want to take away from, because I actually, I mean, obviously, everyone who's watching must know that we are with Epic, and we would love to grow our Epic family. This is no
For
secret.
sure.
Um, and I really don't want to take away from, I'm having a lot of success with the realty.com leads, which is not through my team. That is a free lead gen that we get with Epic. And I mean, I'm just having I can't even, I'm just like, my mind's blown right now. I don't know what's going on, but the leads are fantastic. They're solid. They're not they're serious leads. So, and that's not
And
any different split.
and the other great thing about the realty.com leads is they're warm leads, and you're not coming in cold as just like offering real estate services, you're actually offering a solution to a problem that they have. And a lot of times is that they don't want to deal with going on market. They don't want to deal with cleaning. They don't want to deal with the hassle of people being in their home. They want a quick cash offer. So we're really coming in more as a resource and a solution to a problem that they have, instead of just being that realtor that is going to list their home and market their home, which yes, we all do a great job of when we need to. But in the current climate, a lot of people are hurting and a lot of people don't want to have to do that. So realty.com is a great solution. And it really is it. If you don't like to cold call, this kind of gives you a different approach to being a problem solver, instead of just like feeling like you're asking for business, which I really like about the realty.com leads.
Yeah, we should definitely do an episode on realty.com.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on for that. So Lonnie, can you talk about the red flags and the green flags?
Yeah. So, some red flags that I would consider important when you're thinking about making a move to a different real estate brokerage, things to ask yourself are, have you outgrown the tools, the leadership, or the vision of the company? Do you feel stuck, uninspired, or unsupported, whether that be by company founders, by leadership, by the mentors? And have you reached your ceiling at a company, right? Like, do you feel you can still grow, or do you feel like your growth has become stagnant being at that particular brokerage that you're with? Like maybe for example, you've pushed into luxury, but your company doesn't have a luxury division, right? That might be a good reason to maybe consider a different real estate brokerage. And are you scared to ask questions or challenge the status quo? I would say that, again, that kind of aligns with, do you feel supported by your leadership? So I think leadership is a huge, red flag. I know when I was leaving a company, I'm not going to name it, but there were red flags that this particular branch office was going under. And I saw the red flags and I saw the red flags. And that's when I started looking. Like, there was a lot of turnover with the management, and signage was different. There were so always look out for those little things, I would say, as far as red flags. And reasons, this is a time of year where, there's that shiny object syndrome, right? You've got all these recruiters calling you, reaching out. And like for me, I just was recruited pretty hard, and I took some hard time to really, really consider it. And I have a team now. So my girls, like, their opinion is very important to me as well, especially as they're just starting out their businesses. So some reasons to stay: you still feel like you're learning and growing and being challenged. The leadership listens and is evolving. The culture fuels you instead of drains you. And you see a path forward. You see a path for growth in that. So I would say that those are some really good green flags as to why you should stay with a company. And I would also just say, don't confuse fear and intuition. The difference between fear is it sounds very loud and chaotic, and your intuition, it's calm, it's consistent, and it keeps just tapping you on the shoulder. So if that thought that you want to leave a brokerage or something doesn't feel right, don't ignore it, but don't have it be, oh, my brokerage didn't answer this time, or, you're feeling chaotic and angry. Don't move or make any sort of rash decisions, because again, making a move, it really does stagnate your growth. So if your growth is your main focus, it might not be a good time to switch unless you just feel like you've completely reached your ceiling and you've exhausted all other options.
Yeah. And I don't know if we should like stagnate your growth. I don't know. Like, switching puts a damper in your momentum.
Thank you. That's better said. Yeah.
It's definitely, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, let's hit the 5 questions every agent should ask before leaving.
Okay.
All right, so
wrap it up.
All right. So the first one is my brokerage aligned with how I actually make money? For example, if you are investor focused, then do you feel like the brokerage you're with kind of supports that? If you want to go all in on luxury, well, you probably need to be with a brokerage that has a solid luxury division.
Or is building one.
Yeah. I just put my name on the wait list of ours. Why not?
We're actually going to have the head of our luxury division on the podcast in the new year. So stay tuned for that.
Very excited.
Big.
He is wonderful.
Yeah, he is.
He's a lot of fun. Okay, so if the brokerage is built for something you don't do, well, friction is inevitable. So that's a fair, pretty obvious one, right? Like you want to be somewhere that's aligned with, like some realtors, they just want to do property management, for example. Well, then you obviously need to be with a brokerage that is aligned with that,
Right.
So number 2, am I paying for value or just permission to hang my license?
Oh, good one.
So yeah, like what are you getting for your fees? We at Epic, we don't have the cheapest desk fees or tech fees. But I feel like we get so much for it that I don't even bat an eye. Like
we are like the 5-star all-inclusive resort. We're not the cheapest, but what you get is it's unbeatable.
Right. So yeah, so
all the food and all the margaritas you could possibly want.
If only the bar was open when we went to our events. It's really sealed the deal. Okay. Training I never attend does not count. So yeah, if your training if you have a ton of training, but you don't ever like want to go, I don't know. I mean, like some of these brokerages, they have a lot of in-person training. But if you never show up, then who cares? Like
Exactly. And if you're not going to the training that your current brokerage offers, you're probably not going to go to training at a new brokerage. Like for me, I'm not a big meeting person. Not my thing. Probably not going to go.
Yeah. Like, how do you learn? I mean, do you want access to a bunch of pre-recorded videos? Well, okay, if you want that, then make sure you go to a brokerage that has that. If you want, if your jam is live Zoom calls or whatever platform they use, then make sure they have that. If you want those in-person trainings, well, then you should probably go to KW.
Yes.
Okay. Culture I don't participate in doesn't count. So yeah, I mean, that's the other thing. It's like, I can't wait. I love going to events and our conferences because I do feel like I vibe. I feel like I'm part of a family. I feel like I'm part of the culture. I feel appreciated. I feel seen. And I feel like I fit in. I mean, there's so many different personality types at Epic. No doubt we're not like a bunch of robots, but like there is a vibe. And
there's a total vibe. And when you go to our events, like the energy is intoxicating. And
if you're not into that vibe, then you need to find a brokerage that is more your vibe.
Right, exactly.
So culture.
But we have the vibes.
We definitely have the vibes. Nobody has as much fun as we do at our events.
No.
Okay. Number 3. Try to blow through these. All right. So does my broker help me solve real problems or just compliance ones? So if the only time you hear from your broker is when you mess up paperwork, that's a red flag.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and I will say I needed my broker. It wasn't even for a question I had. It was for a question somebody else at another brokerage had, but I reached out to him and I mean, of course they need some leeway time, right? Like they're running a brokerage, but within 2.5 hours, he called me back. Not only did he call me back, he gave me like the statute, like email me the statute that was related to the incident. So yeah, you want a brokerage that is on point with statutes, legal, and that is going to have a good turnaround time. I mean, obviously a couple hours, I think by the end of day, but yeah.
I thought you said statue, and I was like, what does a statue have to do with anything? Like, why is he emailing you a statue of what? So random. Okay. Okay. Yes, the broker is, yeah. I love our state broker. I mean, I'm really happy with her. I knew her before she became the state broker, and I always liked her. So that does make a big difference if you actually like your state broker.
Yeah, I have two, and they're both fabulous. Shout out to Brian and Hank in Florida. Woo woo.
Good. Allison Barnett in Georgia, she's actually an attorney as well. So that's pretty cool.
Ooh.
She's a sweet lady. All right. So, number 4, can I grow here in the next 2 to 3 years, or have I outgrown it? I mean, you said at one of the brokerages you were with, you just felt like you kind of were like tapped out. Like
I reached my ceiling.
like, you just didn't feel
Besides
like
feeling like I reached my ceiling, I saw the other red flags, right? So I knew it was time to get out of there. And within a year of me leaving, I don't even think it was a full year, that office was closed down. So I
wow.
knew, I felt it. Like you've got to listen to that intuition, like look for those red flags, feel it out. So I was spot on with that. But I
You're
love that.
clairvoyant.
I
You're
love that one. And
clairvoyant.
that's number 5, right?
That's number 4.
Number
And
4.
the
Okay.
5th one, by the way, I actually, side note, clairvoyant. I was reading the luxury magazine for real estate at a doctor's office yesterday. And I shouldn't laugh, one of the top luxury realtors in Atlanta who was featured there, she is clairvoyant, which means she's psychic, right?
Right.
Kind of cool.
I wonder, I'm
Okay.
just like trying to process this.
She
How
put,
she
I mean, that
uses
was like
that to her
written
advantage
in-
when she's
Right? Yes.
like,
I was
is
like,
that
what?
something you should disclose before you go? Like, is that
By
in
the
her
way, I'm psychic.
tagline? I don't know. I have so many questions.
I
We'll
know.
have to come back to that.
Yes. Okay. Sorry, I had to throw. Number 5. Am I staying out of loyalty? And this is the last one. Am I staying out of loyalty, fear, or comfort? That is a big one. That is a big one, especially if you love the people there. And I mean, I have a friend who is a really top realtor here, and he's been with this brokerage. He may have actually left. I need to check in on him, but he was with his brokerage for a really long time since he started. And I know the broker was like a father figure, and he's known him since he was a kid. And I mean, the emotional strings, even when I think he realized like he'd kind of outgrown the brokerage.
Yeah,
And so that's hard,
it is. Yeah.
but you
And
got to do what's right for
again,
you.
this is your business,
Right.
right? Like nobody is going to do the work for you.
Mm.
Even if you're on a team, like
Mhm.
you have to put in the work. Because nobody is going to put work into you if you're not putting in the work. Like real estate is not a 9 to 5. You
Right.
have to constantly be sharpening your skills. You have to have the systems and you have to stay consistent. And if you do those things, you will be successful in real estate, no matter which brokerage you're with. A brokerage is just a tool, ultimately. And then you get
Right.
into I guess lastly, does the real estate brokerage have other opportunities to build wealth within inside the brokerage? I
If
think that
that's what you
those,
want.
if that's what you want. So, anyways, I think that this was really great topic today, Halls.
Yeah, let me just round it off. We'll just end it here. But I wanted to say, so staying stuck is also a risk. So it's scary to leave.
Ooh, yeah,
But there's a risk in staying. If you feel like you're kind of stuck, there's a risk in that too. It just feels safer. And then actually I made a dream board or whatever you call it, mood board, not a mood board. What are these things called? Vision board. And my vision board, it says, do what scares you a little and excites you a lot.
Ooh, I love that.
Do what scares you a little and excites you a lot. Okay. And then last but not least, I wanted to say the best brokerage isn't the biggest, the cheapest, or the trendiest. It's the one that supports how you actually do business.
I love that.
All
And
right,
I
cool.
think that's so true. So true. And a great way to end this awesome happy birthday, Halls.
Hey, look, I
So
got a little button here. Oh, wow. Look at that
make
button.
sure to like and subscribe. Drop us a comment if you thought that this episode was helpful. If you have any other questions that you think we might be able to help you with, and if we've intrigued you about Epic, schedule a call with us. I mean,
Yeah.
we're no nonsense. We want to attract people that want to come. We don't want to attract people that don't want to be here, and we're not pushy. We just love Epic and how it's transformed our lives, and we want to shout it to the rooftop and help those that it might be a good fit for.
I love that. All right, great. All right, Lonnie, I'll see you soon. Ciao, everyone. Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye, friends.